Hi, my name is Alexander Aguilar. I'm currently a Lynn University grad student and also a South Florida State College adult education instructor. Today we'll be going over Capstone Proposal Part 2, so please follow along while I go over the key elements. In Part 2, we will be going over the key elements of my concept and visual development. In our previous video, we looked at the research and background information that led to develop the capstone proposal. To begin with, let's look at the corporate logo and the name I developed. The company logo is an image of two 3D books as seen from the right angle to showcase an academic emblem. The open book is revealing the E and the A that are seen in E Academics, the corporate name. As mentioned in the background and research video, I will begin by incorporating adult education, mathematical reasoning word problems, and build on to include science, civics, reading, and language lessons. To get a better idea as to how the corporate logo and name were created, let's look at my initial sketches. In the upper left corner, we have the first paper and pencil sketches that I began with for the corporate name. In the bottom left corner, you will see the logo as it went through different stages. Overall, my final product is much more professional. To the right, we have the layout sketches that I used to help me develop the right look for my corporate package and ID system. Those initial layout sketches helped me create the corporate package on the left-hand side and the corporate identity system on the right-hand side. If you can't see the details in this slide, don't worry. We'll be going over each element in the following slides. First, let's look at the letterhead. You will notice that it is made to be used as Cornell notes, as shown in Avid's Cornell note-taking system. On the right-hand side, we're going to have our notes, and on the left-hand side, we're going to create questions based off of those notes. You'll also notice that I included dot plots to also help students draw out any visual elements that they want to. Now, I encourage my students to look at the different levels of questioning when developing their questions. Avid Bloom's taxonomy and Costas levels of thinking introduced that level 1 questions deal with remembering and understanding, level 2 questions deal with analyzing and applying, and level 3 questions deal with creating and evaluating. It is my experience that the GED and college-based questions deal more with level 2 and level 3 questions, while public high schools deal with a lot of level 1 questions. So it can become a little bit difficult for students to transition from a lot of level 1 questions to a lot of level 2 and 3 questions. But these letterhead will help them go through that process. The business card and the envelope are made simple but also show the key elements of the logo. Moving on to the corporate identity system, the first thing I want to point out is our company slogan up here in red letters. So, our company slogan is high engagement through web creation. Then we have a brief explanation as to what it is we're going to try to incorporate into this corporate project. We also have the color logo and we have the black and white logo. Looking at our other elements, we're going to have our corporate colors. And these were corporate colors that I chose to go well with each other. We have the corporate typography after that, which includes Mingler Bold as our logo font. With the exception of the E and the A, those were actually edited in Adobe Illustrator to match the actual logo, the actual image. Our header is going to be using Industry Ink base. That's because I felt like this font really captures the audience's attention. Our paragraph font is going to be Futura PT book version. This is because this reads very well. Now, PowerPoint actually doesn't have these, so you won't be seeing these elements in all the text that we have here. Now, for the extra information accompanying the logo, we have Mingler Regular. I did this because I didn't want to take away as much attention from the E-Academic logo, but I did want to provide some more information. On the right-hand side, we're going to have our vision statement, mission statement, goals, purposes, and executive summary. I won't go over them here because we'll be going over those in details in the following video. Now to take a closer look into the executive summary, which I feel will help teachers and students get a better idea as to what e-academics is and how we help to create a more productive learning environment for teachers and students. Now please follow along as I read it. E-academics offers an engaging website that helps students use critical thinking and reading skills to solve complex word problems. The high engagement web trends utilized within the website will prolong the attention span of students, while the high engagement teaching strategies within the website will give students the skills they need for post-secondary and career success. E-academics is developed to be used as a group lesson teachers can administer on a smartboard. Students can also access the lesson to develop further comprehension. The lesson reduces the workload of teachers by providing a ready-to-go lesson plan. The strategies taught are data-driven and proven to work. Following our executive summary is the vision statement. The vision statement is meant to give us an understanding of the company's hopes and dreams for the future. Now, our vision statement is to establish high engagement learning with interactive technology. Following this, I'm going to show you our mission statement. Now, e-academics believes that the students and teachers are the key for the future. So, our mission is to transform how students learn by providing teachers high engaging web content. This leads us to our next topic, which is goals and purposes. So, many of the high engagement strategies that will be integrated in this online lesson promote critical thinking. Learning how to tackle these types of problems will help students when facing similar questions in college and at work. So, our goals and purposes is to provide high engagement strategies for learning with web design and technology to prepare students for college. Following this, we're going to look at our key message. So, the key message is crucial for understanding the following sample questions that I'm going to provide. So, please remember the key message in the following slides. High engagement reading strategies are key to understanding complex word problems. So why don't we go ahead and take a look at some of these complex word problems. Mathematical reasoning word problem. Now, this question was created to be similar to the 2018 GED mathematical reasoning test. Now, this test measures high school equivalency and college readiness. Please follow along as I read the word problem. Don't worry about understanding it right now, as we're going to go into detail how to tackle this type of problem. Brandon's container home is twice as large as Alexander's container home. Alexander's container home is half the length of Roberto's container home. Roberto's home has a length that is 4 times as large as the width. The height of the home is 102 inches. If the perimeter of Roberto's home is 100 feet, what is the volume of the Brandon's container home? So, let's look at some of these strategies. The first high engagement technique that I want to focus on is reading with a purpose. Using Avid's critical reading strategies, like pre-reading, we try to predict what the word problem will be about, what formulas might be needed, and what prior knowledge will help us with the problem. When we read, we should read with a purpose. This will help the reader retain information and stay focused. This also helps clarify ideas and build comprehension. Now, I recommend using different text marking strategies to separate your information. When reading for a purpose, Avid teaches us to circle keywords, to underline claims. For this demonstration, however, I'll be using different colors of font for keywords and underlining the final question. I'll do something very similar to this on the actual website. So, in red, I have Brandon's, Alexander's, and Roberto's, because we need to identify that we have 3 different people and that we're going to have information for each one of these individuals. So, B represents Brandon, A represents Alexander, and R represents Roberto. So I took that information they gave us for each individual and I jotted down some notes. I made them short and simple. B is equal to twice amount of whatever A has. A is equal to half, or divided by 2, of what Roberto has. So, that tells us that they didn't tell us exactly what Roberto represents, but if we read very closely, we're going to understand that Roberto basically has the same thing as Brandon. So, let's look at the question. that question is asking for Brandon's container home, but all the work is for Roberto. But it won't matter, because when we solve for Roberto, we're actually going to find Brandon because of this right here. Let's look at the next thing. The next thing is to understand what they're giving us. They're giving us information about perimeter, okay, and here they said perimeter, okay, the height, the perimeter is 100 feet. So we put that perimeter, and we put the formula for perimeter, 2 length plus 2 width. Now this is using that prior knowledge that I mentioned. So if we are reading with a purpose, and we're trying to find out what we're going to need, we're going to need information about perimeter, we're going to need information about area, and we're going to need information about volume. Now, we're not going to solve the area, but knowing how area works will help us know how volume works, because basically perimeter area builds upon perimeter, and volume builds upon area. So the next thing I want you to look at is things like how they give us inches for the height, but everything else seems to be feet. So this is done on purpose to see if the student is actually reading, to see if they're thinking critically. Because what usually happens is students will see how this is 102 and they automatically associate feet. They won't identify that the inches written over here would apply to this. Now, they'll use that in their regular work, which will give them the wrong answer at the end. So, Roberto's length is equal to 4 times the width, and Roberto's perimeter is 100 feet. Now, just like we created this system over here, we can do the same thing over here with length and width. Now, when we convert the 102 inches, we'll see that as 8.5 feet. Now, in this problem, I try to use measurements that were as close to the real thing, because later on, we're going to show you how I plan to show a visual element of this container home to help the students out, to help them picture it. So, 1. Find the length and width using perimeter. 2. Use measurements to find volume. And 3. Check to see if the answer matches the question. So I'm going to take a little bit of extra time just to show you guys how we would work this out. I won't go into too much detail. I'll just do a quick pen and do a little bit of the work here. So we start with this right here, and we're basically going to, everywhere we see the word L, we're going to replace it with 4W. So this is going to be 2 times 4W. Now, 2 times 4 will give us 8, and 8 plus 2 more will give us 10. So we essentially have 10W gives us a total of 100 feet. Now, the math isn't hard. What's hard is trying to understand, trying to put all of this into a simple equation. Divide by 10, divide by 10, cancels out. We bring down our W, bring down the equal sign, and we have 10 feet. Now that means that the width is 10 feet. So remember that the length is 4 times the width. So that means that my length is going to be 40, because 10 times 4 is going to be 40. Now, after I've done that, I can use that to find the volume. So the volume was length times width times height. So we have our length, which is 40, times our width, which is 10, times our height, which we went ahead and turned into feet, which is going to be 8.5 feet. Now, good news, you won't have to do all of this in your head. A lot of the questions on the GED will actually provide a calculator, but you can't enter formulas and you can't think critically on a calculator. So that's why they have a lot of this mathematical reasoning, a lot of this thinking. So that should give us around 3,400 feet squared. Don't forget to include that 3 right there, because, not squared, cubic. 3,400 cubic feet. Now this cubic represents volume, and they want us to answer in cubic feet. So this right here should be our answer. Now that we've seen the type of problems that we're going to see in our online lesson, let's go ahead and look at the timeline. And in order to complete my capstone project, I need to first finish taking the following courses. As you can see by the timeline, Capstone 1 will be taken at the end of August, and Capstone 2 will be taken mid-October. The other master's courses taken will help with the creation of my project and the marketing of my corporate identity. They include analytical websites, which is going to help me learn to design with purpose, web design tech, which is going to help me learn advanced web techniques, and marketing research, which is going to help me study marketing strategies. Following this, we're going to have our development goals. Now, at the end of the day, our development goals are to 1. Establish effective learning and effective study habits. 2. Promote in-depth reading strategies to increase critical thinking skills. And 3. Improve student participation while providing a more structured and efficient group lesson. Following this, we're going to have our project content. Now, the project content will consist of using the following websites and programs. For the CSS animation, in our high engaging web trends, we have W3 Schools. To create the visual elements, we're going to use My Light. Here's the logo of it, and we're going to also use Marmoset Viewer to incorporate these 3D elements into a website in an interactive way. Let's go ahead and click on each one and see what they have. So, W3 Schools. This is W3 Schools, and here we have CS animation. Here we can see some of this animation. And as we go through this, there's different examples and different strategies you can try. Alright, moving to my light, we're going to have just a little preview of the program I'm going to be using. I won't go too in depth because there's a lot to learn with my light. But what I am going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open up one of the projects that I was currently working on. So the project that I'm going to currently open up is going to be an example of how I went ahead and created the 3D logo for this corporate identity. So here we have an image. Here we have a 3D file of 2 books, one on top of the other. Now I created these in my light to give me a better idea as to which angle I could create the logo in. And this is the angle that I decided would give me that shape of that emblem, that academic emblem. Here we can do stuff like rotate. We can do stuff like move. We can do stuff like scale to get the image that we're trying to create. There's a lot of other buttons and a lot of other techniques and strategies to use with my light, but that's going to be covered in another portion when I go into detail as to how I created the visual elements for the company. So, next we're going to look at Marmoset Viewer. Okay, we're going to see how we're going to incorporate those 3D elements into our project. So, here's an example of what the Marmoset Viewer is going to do for us. It's going to help me put these 3D objects into a interactive WebGL video in our lesson. So this is going to be at the very bottom of the lesson, and instead of this little character, what we're going to see is we're going to see a visual development of that container home. So that way students can kind of see how Roberto's home is the exact same size as Brandon's home, and that way they can get a visual of what it is we're working with. Now, they don't have to create a 3D logo for them to understand it. They don't have to create a 3D image, but it just helps them understand that creating visual elements for difficult word problems is an effective strategy. Alright, going back to the video. Alright, we're going to move on to the next part, and which is basically our APA references. So if you have any questions, if you want to look at some of the software that I'll be using, if you want to look at the Avid strategies, all of this can be found in the APA references. Feel free to check them out. And thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed yourself and you have a better idea as to what eAcademics is going to represent. Have a great day.